Hey there, welcome to episode 90 of the FFS Talk audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 3:45 in the afternoon of Thursday, August 14th, 2025. Yes, I will return to like a regular morning or night before recording schedule. There's been we're moving some stuff, or actually we're adding some stuff. You can now find this program in more places, or maybe you'll be able to locate those places more easily because it's been available. Anyway, we'll get there in a second. Today's title and topic: ideological platforms and the ability to say that word. If you're not familiar with the FFS Talk audio program, or if you think I will be able to make it through this without tying my tongue up completely, this is a program about discussion and conversation. Ironically, guest-free thus far, but that's okay. We're establishing some baselines for conversations into the future. What works, what does not work, and what we might do about it is the basic premise. There could be conversation, debate, argument, not fisticuffs most likely. In an audio format, there is something to be said about the audio essay that I've been publishing on a weekly basis on a variety of topics, being that seed of conversation, and then perhaps making any actual conversations, any actual discussions with some other participants, something we might publish in the form of video so that you can actually see and participate in some way, either just by watching, or who knows, let's see what happens. So that's where things are. So we'll touch on this in the link section, but first I do want to inform anyone who's just joining us. If this is your first time listening, yes, there are 89 other episodes besides this one. Episode 0 is an introduction to the channel, to the series, if you like. But so episode 90, we have yet to have a guest, and to be honest, I really haven't been inviting people. I've really just been laying those foundational starting points for future conversations, perhaps, and that might take place. Otherwise, maybe you'll just find this interesting. What works, what doesn't, what we can do about it. And if you are not familiar with the FFS abbreviation, if you're not familiar with that, typically Irish, I'm sure other people use it as well. I've certainly heard it many times in my many trips to Dublin and other parts of Ireland. But if you are not familiar, maybe you need to hang out with more Irish people. So on that note, hopefully wherever you've located this episode, and again, there are now more places, hopefully you're able to see the show notes, or the episode description, I should say, which contains the show notes and the title and the publication date and a bunch of other stuff. So the show notes contain a brief summary, which I will read to you, one quick sentence, and then a few links for today's episode. There's the 3 usual shameless self-promotion links, which we'll touch on briefly, and then there are 3 links. They're all related. So two articles linked, about a study linked. So we'll get to that in just a second. So let's get started so we can get finished on this lovely hot it was supposed to be cooler today. It was supposed to be under 100, and it's already 107-ish, 105, 107, depending on which numbers you're looking at here in the Vegas area. Yay. The summary of today's episode then: who at this point is not on one or both. I see I had a typo there. It already screwed me up. Who at this point is not on one or both of Twitter and Blue Sky, or X and BS if you like. That's what I call them. And who finds that a good thing? That's quick and easy. We're not actually going to be speaking about Twitter and Blue Sky too much, but they are certainly indicative at this point, as Facebook could be as well, and a few others. The links for today's episode, like I said, 3 shameless self-promotion links. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo is a profile page, and that's probably the one that should stick around if I whittle it down to just one. The buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page itself has links to everything that I produce, all of my audio productions, and whatever follows from those, all of my various projects I'm working on. There are affiliate links for some of my favorite coffee beans if you want to purchase them on Amazon. Keep it simple. I actually purchased those, so I can vouch for all of those selections. That I believe that's correct. That's still true. I cannot vouch for their prices in these chaotic economic times, but if you purchase through one of those links, great. I get a little something and it costs you nothing extra. That's wonderful. And then there are affiliate links for a couple of other things that I actually use. So, hey, if you want to support my efforts without spending any extra money, and if there's something there that's appealing, great. You are under no obligation to actually buy me a coffee, despite the name of that site. You don't have to spend any money on anything, to be honest. I'm happy that you're listening to what I have to say here today. The Buy Me an Update audio program was formerly available exclusively on buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts. However, that is no longer true. Guess how you can find out where it is? If you visit the buymeacoffee.com/danhugo page, it will be linked right there. But I will touch on that in a second. The Coffee Solo audio program is available on a similar website, ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts. I don't really make use of the Ko-fi platform in general. I haven't really figured out what I would do there because I don't really sell things. I just talk about ideas. But anyway, Coffee Solo is a program that was formerly available exclusively on ko-fi.com. It's a no particular schedule, no particular topic. I just publish it whenever, wherever. It could be multiple episodes in a day, which has happened, I think, once so far, but it's still a new production. Both Buy Me an Update and Coffee Solo then are named for the platforms on which they were exclusively available, but now they're also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music Podcasts, whatever they actually call that. And also on YouTube. There are YouTube channels for all of my programs now. Why? Because I would like more people to be able to access these things. So having content hosted on an exclusive platform doesn't make a ton of sense in this modern decentralized world. Sort of touches on the topic for today, but not really. But anyway, so the content, the Buy Me an Update program and the Coffee Solo program are published first on their respective Buy Me a Coffee and Ko-fi.com platforms, but not even, hours later. I don't know. I was going to say like, I'll do it at the end of the week instead of the beginning for Buy Me an Update, which is on Mondays. That's the summary. It's a summary of my week's previous audio programs, title, topic, basic rundown, and any news and announcements under 5 minutes. So it's very, very brief. So I was going to publish it days later, but I don't even want to play that game. I would like to reach more people and engage with the humans, not the platforms. So there's that. So check out, if you're going to click on anything, buymeacoffee.com/danhugo, don't spend any money. You can see where all of my stuff is if you're interested. Gizmodo on social media bots. There's a bot study, which will be the third link I mentioned here. Gizmodo on social media bots. It's an interesting article. It is about the study. It's brief, so if you just want a very quick overview, the study was done using large language model bots, robots, automation. They were all from they were all from OpenAI. So they were all ChatGPT. Clearly not version 5, but you can flip through there and get the deets. I think it's an interesting idea, but far from sufficient to make any conclusions. But anyway, the Gizmo article, brief, if you want to skim over it real quick, and it does link to the study as well. Next, Ars Technica, Ars on social media bots study with an interview of the person who was driving the research. And if I still have that tab open, I'll tell you the person's name. No, of course I don't have that tab open. Dummy. Why do I not have that tab open? That's horrible. Yeah, that social media probably can't be fixed. So on Ars Technica. And the person's name, Peter Thornberg. I don't know if that's pronounced Peter. So check that out. That's a longer article, more detailed. It goes into discussions about the whys and the whats and the wherefores and all that. And then there is that also links to the study. So the third link in the links section today is the actual study in the, I don't know how you pronounce that, ARXIV. It's ARXIV. It's a site hosted by, or it's a part of, it's a site hosted by Cornell University. So this is a preprint study, so it hasn't been peer reviewed. I'm going to guess that some peer review will probably suggest that you shouldn't just use one platform from OpenAI, and I'll comment on that later. So did its thing using automation with the latest of, not almost the latest at the time probably, of large language model, chat, agent-based models, etc., all the buzzwords. And so they simulated a population. Was it 500? I think it was. I only found this stuff early this morning, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, because I was already going to talk about this today, and then these fell in my lap, so to speak. The paper was only preprint published last week on the 5th of August, I believe it was. So I think, now I don't remember. I think it was 500 robots. So that's a very small population of automation. It's automation. It's all using the same platforms. Oh, they were using GPT-4o Mini, 500 chatbots. There you go. Okay, so that's in the Gizmodo article. I knew I saw that somewhere. So, right, and so the final is the actual preprint study link, like I said. So it is a Cornell University website. There's a lot of preprint stuff on there, not just this one thing, so you can check those out. You can download the article. I downloaded the PDF to pour over later, but this is not earth-shattering. It's one study, so I wouldn't hang all the hats on this one hook, but it's certainly interesting to ponder, and I have a feeling the same study can be probably reproduced as far as the setup pretty easily with other agents, other tools, other platforms, which is my first suggestion. And then it would be interesting to see if you mix that with people, what happens, and so on. So there's all kinds of, and in fact, you could probably do the same study with 500 people. But as we know, social media, if I only had 500 followers, why bother? And I will say that I think I have 177 followers on Blue Sky, and that's totally fine. And most of them are probably, they don't care either, because, yeah. Anyway, so let's get on with it so we can get done with it. The public square is certainly a nice idea. It's often the defense used for sites like Twitter/X. I'm not a fan of the X name, but I don't use it enough. So if you type in twitter.com, it redirects to x.com, so you don't even have to worry about it, really. For time immemorial, the notion that people who live or work or merely exist in close proximity with some interdependence on an ongoing basis could come together and discuss mutual benefit and perhaps the future has been a goal in all forms and all localities. Usually some forum does exist for a time, and they might even be effective. The amphitheaters of ancient Greece, or maybe your town has one. I remember our elementary school had an amphitheater outside, and they would have outdoor gatherings sometimes instead of always going into the gym or the cafeteria and setting up bleacher style or folding chairs. So if you wanted to have a little gathering and a presentation, they would put a podium outside in the amphitheater and you could do your thing. So amphitheaters, I think there was something of an amphitheater where I lived in Sunnyvale. You could argue it was sort of like one. Not really, but it's nice to have a physical area where people can gather and share ideas and so on. It's not so common anymore. You probably have to go to a park and hope for the best. But I think an amphitheater is an interesting, I'm thinking about it right now as like, you know what? That's probably something that could exist more frequently. As our modes of communication have improved through history, I don't know if improved is the right word. By improved, I mean amount of information reaching farther distances with less delay and at a lower cost. What you receive via this improved communication channel may or may not have improved, probably not. We have had more and more capability to find out more about more and more often. And of course, at some point, this communication became two-way, from live audience to call in on the phone, especially to radio programs. That was very popular, to real-time two-way chatting and video and the whole nine. And that has only resulted in positivity, right? As you know. With more connectivity, lower latency between happening and discussion, that is the time between something occurs and the when you first hear about it. You can sometimes hear about things while they're happening, on the other side of the planet. That's the nature of the beast at this point. And fewer manners, anything that people might refer to as a public square can very easily become a cacophony at best. I like that word, cacophony. It's a chaotic noise, basically the din of a crowd that could be overwhelming. a hate fest at worst, and then it could get worse still. This is really where we are sometimes. Sometimes people have a really positive experience with social media, and I've kind of dialed myself into that position. So I really don't spend a lot of time interacting on social media so much. We'll get to that in a second. That's it's not a solution, but it's my suggestion for some way to ponder where we are. But there are some good things about social media. Connecting people around the world has real value. I remember when I was in college, I had a friend whom I had met over the summer when a group of Turkish students were visiting our campus and staying in one of the empty dorms. And so we would have a phone call now and then. It was very difficult to connect to Turkey in a reliable way, and there was a lot of echo on the line. It was probably bouncing off a satellite somewhere. Who knows? So nowadays you can just pop open a chat window on some whatever platform of your choice and talk to people for free. You know, that was not a free phone call by any means. So you can talk to people anytime, anywhere on the planet in essentially real time. Very little in the way of echo most of the time. I mean, it's pretty much crystal clear communication on a one-on-one and maybe one-to-many if you want, chat rooms and so on. It is pretty amazing from a technological standpoint. Sometimes it's about sharing real first-person accounts and sometimes troubling events, atrocities even. Other times it is keeping in touch with friends, like my friend in Turkey back then, and family, my family in Arizona when I was in college, for example. Other times it is sharing relevant information for research or collaboration of some sort. That is indeed the origin story of the internet. ARPANET was so that researchers could share information, universities and other government agencies, and then, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research folks. So that was the driving force. Email, any sort of chat programs, anything that they could use to share files and data. The quicker the better, et cetera, and that's where we are. Social media platforms today are not unlike, in fact, they are really, there's a little typo again. In fact, they are real. By the way, I type a lot of this stuff and then I mix in my own commentary on what I've written. So I'm kind of reading from extended notes. So I don't read it word for word, but I'm reading this part word for word. In fact, they're really just visually polished versions of tools that had existed for a long time. Usenet News, which I believe started in 1983 as a broadly distributed type of forum discussion that was very asynchronous. It was almost moving around like email messages. The Network News Transfer Protocol, NNTP. I recall using a tool called Talk. I think that's what it was called, on our VAX in college, the HMC VAX, which I recently talked about this week, to chat in real time with other people. Before all of this, normal people at bulletin board systems or BBSs use those for exchanging files and messages and for having discussions. Usually, if your BBS was run by one person with no budget and very little in the way of support, would have one modem, so one person could dial in, post a comment on a discussion board, download a file, whatnot, and try to keep their time on their brief because they're monopolizing the one communication channel. Other, higher end BBSs might have 2 modems or 3 modems or 4 modems and 4 phone lines, and it was mayhem. And then AOL came along with all of the modems, but that's a different story. And again, all of these are evolution of normal human social behavior over longer distances with less latency and more capacity. So now you can talk to more people. I'll use the word talk, not communicate. You can talk to more people and they're farther away, and there's less time passes between each communication, and also less time passes between the thing that happens and the thing you want to talk about. So instead of waiting for a day or hours or a day or a month, waiting for the 5 o'clock news, that doesn't happen anymore. Hey, what happened on the other side of the planet? I can probably find out within minutes if it's something substantial, right? So it's well within our human nature to be curious and to want to be sociable and connect with people and so on. Now you can just do it at scale and at a distance. Obviously, it is useful now and then to connect with people around some issue, some argument, some interest, some urgent need to hash something out. Like maybe you have a problem with something somebody said or something somebody did or something that somebody else did. That's very common nowadays. Maybe in groups on either side or sides of a particular solution, You get this a lot on political conversations, especially around elections. I use the word conversation generously. Sometimes in-person convention is not possible. That is convening a gathering. So convening in person can be difficult. It's certainly more economical to chat with a video stream than to travel great distances. And with the technology, you can have that video stream for pennies or free, and it can be in real time with very little in the way of delay and synchronization problems. So it's pretty, again, from an engineering standpoint, some pretty amazing things over the past decades in this regard. So during a pandemic, for example, you might want to have a chat with people that you cannot reach in person, whether they're around the corner or around the planet. So that modern technology enables communication in the face of difficulties that might otherwise thwart it. You can talk to somebody right now in a war zone and pick one. There's so many at this point. And if they are able to connect, probably with Starlink or something, but if they're able to, I'm not laughing at that. I'm just laughing how ridiculous that is. But if someone can get a connection, get a live internet connection, you may be able to reach them and have a real-time conversation in the worst of circumstances. So that's a very interesting thing. It's something that normal people can do. Back in the embedded journalist days, it would be the likes of CNN and government agencies that were having these levels of real-time communication in those circumstances. So it's, again, come a long way. And let us not forget the upsides to automated language translation in text and now real-time audio to bridge yet more potential gaps. So now you can speak to someone in a completely different language, probably fairly effectively. I will say I was in Rome one time for Maker Faire Rome, and I got in, I think the day before that the rest of the people from Intel were getting there that I was going to be hanging out with. And I was staying, I selected a hotel based on price and whatever. And it was kind of far away from where everybody else was staying, which really was a good thing. So I got there and I was not able to check in for about 2 hours for whatever, it's the way it is. So I left my bags at the desk and I wandered down the street to a little coffee shop of sorts. And it was, I think it might have been a mother-son or, I don't know, it was a family business. And they spoke zero English. So I basically busted out the old Android and used Translate to have a very awkward, like non-continuous, not awkward in a bad way, but just, and they understood. They were like, oh, that's cool. We can actually be polite in a different language. So we had a cordial conversation, passing the time. How is Rome? I'm here for the Maker Faire, etc. Now, that was almost 10 years ago. So now, was it 10 years ago? Probably. I think it was about 7 years, 7 or 8. So yeah, lots changed just in that regard. You can now do that in real time, two-way conversations, et cetera, et cetera. So really, really amazing. So there's some really good stuff. And some of this comes from one-to-one and other, if somebody posts a tweet or a Facebook post, they'll often have a built-in translation link. It'll translate it for you, or you can certainly translate text and now audio fairly easily, usually for free. So yeah, the upsides of social networking is as a thing, or more generally, the connection of people far and wide, quickly and cheaply across language barriers. These seem like good things. There are some bad things mixed in with all this, which people will encounter if they venture outside of their smaller communication groups, or if they let some curious unknown account in, is a cacophony of bad actors, bad robots, a profit motive, and an information gathering machine that grabs everything for resale and assessment, leading to more of the same and then even more of the same. It hasn't been awful, it's not unbearable, but I get like 2 or 3 people a week now, and they're, I'm going to say universally women, or accounts that have women names that seem like names of women. And they'll send a picture, or they'll have a profile picture. So there's a, hi, how are you doing? Or are you busy this weekend? I'm like, 90% of the time I don't answer, but every once in a while, just to see what they're doing, I'll say like, do I know you? Or I'll say, oh, I'm not doing anything this weekend. Oh, is this? And then they pick a name I found your number in my contacts. Is this you? No. Oh, may I have your name? That's like almost always the beginning of the strategy is to start. Oh, we just ran into each other here on Telegram or Signal or wherever. Not often on Signal. Text messaging, same, etc., etc. So if that happens, I basically play along for a couple of exchanges and then block them, or I just block them. But those are bad. They're bad robots, bad actors. If it's a person, it's they're probably sitting in a room with 100 other people doing exactly the same thing for money, or it's more likely now automation, and they just want to know that there's somebody that will respond, and then they'll feed that into the other algorithms, and you'll get more and more. And in fact, that probably keeps me getting a new visitor every once in a while, is that I do respond now and then, but like I said, it doesn't last very long, and then they are sent away. If you flip through that study or the articles about it, really, you can do that. The Gizmodo, like I said, very, very brief. And the Ars Technica one with the interview is a little bit longer, goes into more detail. And I have to be honest, I need to go through the actual study in more depth. I just skimmed over it really quickly just to basically say, ooh, this fits into what I wanted to talk about anyway. But the general take home, the makeup of social media platforms as they exist today, even with adjustments to algorithms or no algorithms, and that was something they experimented with, but you must absolutely understand that they experimented with large language models simulating people. So keep that in mind. Maybe just placing so much diversity in constant proximity perhaps leads to tribalism, confrontation, and then the various other behaviors we have all encountered to some degree. The concerns about social media are found far and wide at government level, in schools. Everybody wants, no cell phones in schools. Jonathan Haidt, I've already talked about that in a previous episode. Haidt, H-A-I-D-T, not H-A-T-E. There are some studies that are contested about the impact of social media on young people, and whether they should be using their phones in schools all through the day and so on. I agree it's a distraction, but I think, it's like saying cars are dangerous, so never teach anyone to drive. They should lean into the use. Anyway, I already talked about this. I'll derail my own thoughts here. True in workplaces, should people be using social media at work, on their work computers even? Maybe in your own devices at home. I suppose the first pass at stating what does not work is the likelihood that you and people in real life maybe, have all experienced negative aspects of social media, or perhaps you have leaned into the trolling and worse. Maybe you're part of the problem. I don't know. And so that social media platforms are something of a mess when it comes to civic discourse. Civic should be civil discourse expectations. Now, if you use Twitter and you go for a fight, it's almost like people who would go hang out in a bar to start a fight, to just get into trouble, they're trolling. If you want to troll people to get a rise out of them, if that's your thing and you want to cause problems or make people feel bad, I'm sorry. It's unfortunate. I don't know where that comes from, but I hope you take it with you when you leave. Sometimes social media can be interesting and fun if you connect with people but I always tell people at this point, you know what, if you want to have a conversation with me, and this actually happened. Someone I know posted something on Blue Sky very early on. I was barely using it, and I still barely use it. Hey, I'm going to be in Vegas this weekend. I said, hey, send me an email. Send me something that I will definitely get. If you post something on Blue Sky, to be honest, I don't even have an app installed or anything. I just use the mobile web browser. I look at it every once in a while. And as we'll mention later, I post now and then. And if I get no reactions, I delete the post because I'm like, I don't want to have like 1,000 posts about things that nobody cares about until sometime in the future when somebody will say, oh, did you see Dan posted that article about the Smithsonian? What a nerd, right? So yeah, I don't want it to look like I'm making use of it because I'm really just posting there for the hell of it. And then if nobody cares, then I don't either, and I delete it. So that's my complicated relationship with Blue Sky. But the take home is when people replace direct connection and communication with, somehow they feel, oh, I need to communicate on a postcard with this person so that everybody knows that I am doing so. Email. Send me an email or call me. I think the person had my phone number. You can call me. You can call me on a normal phone number. You can message me. You can do whatever you want. But there are many ways to reach me that are not dumb, open social networks. So, yeah. Yeah, civil discourse expectations. Who knows? And by the way, I stopped using Facebook several years ago now. I haven't posted. I look on Facebook every couple of months to see if this one person I know is still alive, to be honest. And that's not funny either, but that's odd, I suppose. But yeah, I haven't posted anything on Facebook nor exchanged any messages on the Facebook Messenger in years. And much improved everything. Not that I was feeling like the negative, no negative emotional or nothing so impactful as that, but really more a question of why am I wasting my time? Why am I wasting my time involving myself in any of this stuff? I don't know these people. I will say I did a little experiment. I'm interrupting myself, so this is me freewheeling. I actually have 3 Facebook accounts, so 2 of them I haven't even logged into in forever. One of them I log into every once in a while because I'm not friends with anyone, so I can sort of anonymously poke around and see what's going on. I don't like or follow anything. I just check 1 or 2 people. Okay, yep, they're still alive, or they're not. Who knows? And then the odd opportunity to find something that somebody says, find us on Facebook. Like, take control of your brand. Why are you sending people to Facebook? And then I'm not. Anyway, I'm not going to follow you or anything on Facebook, so it's annoying. I had one account that I had all of the people I knew, so people I went to college with. Basically, Facebook became our alumni hub. Probably at the time when that decision was made to lean into Facebook as an alumni contact hub, I was like, yeah, that seems cool. I was wrong. I'll admit that. And another account, I said, you know what, as an experiment, because I don't really care about Facebook at the end of the day, I'm going to accept every friend request and I'm going to invite all suggested connections to connect. So I hit the 5,000 friend limit in a week, maybe, pretty quickly. And it was absolute garbage. It was absolutely unusable. It was not worth even a moment. And it was also, frankly, not worth trying to undo that. So if somebody finds themselves in a position where they have too many people they don't know, they don't want to hear from and whatnot, administering that friend network on Facebook, and I use the word friend in the loosest sense possible, administering it is not easy. I don't know if they've improved that over time, but they really want to encourage connection and discourage disconnection. So very so sneaky, so contrived an environment for exchanging. And Zuckerberg had his big blue sky plans about connecting people in the world and all that, but we know. We get it, Mark. So not a fan. Everything is better with less social media. So my run-in, I have a more recent example of this, and it kind of goes to why I don't really use Blue Sky either. I stopped using Twitter before it became X, so it's been a while. Occasionally, very occasionally, I will like something on Twitter if I do happen to be skimming through Twitter for something, and I'll tell you why I do that in a second. And I signed up with Blue Sky when they opened up their beta. It was invite only, but then it became, okay, anybody can sign up. So I want to check it out, and it's exactly like the old Twitter, which makes sense given the origin story. I have been using a few Mastodon accounts for different things, which I still do. Mastodon is everybody always says it's a decentralized version of Twitter. It's like, well, in the simplest sense, perhaps, I guess. So I have 3 different Mastodon accounts on mastodon.social or Mastodon Online, one of those. I have a Medium account, a Medium, I don't know if is it me.dm, me.dm, I think it is. So they have a Mastodon server running there. And then I have one on Fosstodon. So I talk about software and tech on the Fosstodon account. And I follow people in that realm. The Medium account, I post more like news, especially if it leans into politics or current events. And then for the other one, I post just general humorous things or odd commentary or whatever. And so I try to follow accounts on those that are similar. So I follow the NPR Mastodon account on my Medium Mastodon account, because that's where I would expect to do that, any interacting or whatnot. So there are people that have poo-pooed, oh, Mastodon, nobody does anything there. Well, because there's a lot of possibility. And so people are used to having one true network. If you're not on Twitter, nobody knows you. Like, well, okay, that's good. You can have as many Mastodon accounts as you care to log into, and you can partition them the way you want. So I'm not here to pitch Mastodon to you, but I am saying there's more than one way to accomplish this. And so I would be curious to know about continued studies in this area. But so having these, I can steer my interactions into different discussions and focus on different areas, topics and whatnot. Basically, I think the Mastodon approach should win here. So I have Blue Sky, and like I said, I delete posts after a while because I don't really care. I leave some of them up. If people have actually engaged, like commented or liked or whatever, I leave them. But that's not a large fraction. I don't post a lot. Maybe I'll post 5 or 6 things a week to Blue Sky, and then nothing, so I delete them. Something like that. I don't know. I don't really keep track. Someone had, excuse me. Someone had posted something about a farmer in the Midwest, I think it was, on Blue Sky. And this was back in January, February, March, I don't know, sometime in the early part of 2025. He was having some financial difficulty, so it made the news based on the early days of policies and announcements and whatnot from the new Trump administration at the time. And people began piling on to this article, and then this huge number of, oh, that's what he voted for, the farmers and Trump thing, and da-da-da. So they basically just went with the assumption that farmer equals conservative or Trump voter, MAGA, whatever. So I was curious. I was like, I wonder if because why would this make the news? I mean, it would make the news in a ha-ha, too bad for you, you got what you deserved kind of way, but that's not a legitimate news story. So I kind of looked like, what's going on here? And it turns out some other news article had gone into, they actually asked them, so are you a Trump? No, we voted Democrat. We've been Democrats. We voted for Kamala. And, so we kind of saw this coming, and here it is, and it's impacting us. So the take home was that everybody that was piling on and attacking people and getting vitriolic was wrong in their assumption. So the presumption regarding the vote was only that, thus enabling the vitriol. Sorry if that sounded abrupt. I had to sneeze, so I hit the pause real quick. So I pointed out that I commented on something. I said, hey, this person actually voted the other way. He did not vote for this, despite the assertions and the finger pointing and the laughing and the jeering and all this stuff. And the vitriol turned to me for no reason. So I'm like, hey, here's a fact. Not interested in it. You must be one of them. And it was a ridiculous attack for no reason, right? So this left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, and it doesn't much matter in person or online or anywhere. Pub rules really do apply for the good of all, or I think they should. And there are several pub rules about just general, the way you comport yourself in a pub. But generally, to keep the conversation civil and the environment welcoming and pleasant, you pretty much leave your religion and your politics at the door. Keep it friendly, or at least avoid launching into hate. That's about it. I mean, there's other rules, like I said, but generally speaking, keep the conversation. I mean, even talking about sports can be a little dodgy sometimes. People really get into their sports, but that's about the limit of it. And then you can usually, calm people down after they've had their say on the recent score, especially if a game is playing on the telly. So this is a simple thing that happened with me. I mean, it didn't. I'm not gonna say it happened. I had that exchange. I blocked a couple people, and I didn't want to deal with it. So I really stay away from that stuff. If I post something of any political bent, I don't really comment. I don't comment on other stuff. Very rarely. Ann Applebaum posted something about. I can't even remember what it was yesterday. She's a writer for The Atlantic, I think it is, but she's very well regarded in with global politics and history and so on. I may be giving her too much credit there, but she's very well regarded, highly regarded in global. I think she lives in Poland or something. She did a lot of stuff with Russia, Soviet Union era stuff. Anyway, so whatever she posted, I posted something from George Orwell's 1984. It was one word. It's actually a couple words, but they Newspeak puts together double plus on good, and I got one like. That's about the extent of my political commentary. So I don't really. People don't follow pub rules. It's simply not the case. When anonymous attacks of contempt, possibly from bots, to get started, they're simply too easy for people to engage in, and I guess there's some sort of sadistic pleasure, some dopamine hit if you get a good one. And I've talked about this in other, probably other episodes of this program, regarding debates, online debates, and how often it isn't about the exchange of ideas or learning something from your, we'll say, opponent, your counterpart in a debate, the other side, or it's really about winning, slapping them down. Christopher Hitchens was very performative in his debates, very knowledgeable, very smart. He's an interesting character, to be sure. But they would call it hitch slapping when he would put people down with his quick retorts and whatnot. Those are a sporting event. They're not for the exchanging of ideas. So I think social media is much more performative than people think. Like if one side knows it's in a performative adventure and one side thinks they're here to exchange ideas or learn something, well, that's not going to work. So I have some ideas. That I will share, but this is certainly, first of all, not something that will be solved with one or two people having a conversation in person or otherwise. But it's certainly something to think about if you're a consumer of social media, whatever you find there. And I was going to say as a consumer of the vitriol, but hopefully not. But if you use social media, I will describe how I use social media now. Maybe you have some ideas too, but so my ideas are from my perspective, and so they're not global in reach and scope. If that one study is to be believed, and if various congressional hearings in the U.S. and various other actions in other countries, not congressional hearings, but similar, the U.K. is getting a lot of attention lately. Other places have banned things for good or bad reasons, etc. There have been lawsuits, anecdotes of various bad experiences, sometimes good experiences. And your own personal experiences are taken into consideration. It is difficult to argue that there is not a problem to address here. Right? That one study says it's a huge problem and it's not easily solvable based on the automation approach to show. But okay. One thing that I think might be worth considering is leaning much more towards groups of known people. This is not a solution, but it's just something to be aware of. So that joining a friend group, a family group, a coworker, a colleague group, or classmate groups if you're at school and you want to discuss homework or school-related topics in or out of academia, it should be far more deliberate than it is today. And I mentioned my Telegram. I get these oddballs showing up, and they're obviously targeting, right? Someone has written down somewhere that, male likes women, will respond 10% of the time, probably located in wherever, right? So they start profiling, and you're going to get these. And I used to get the same exact type of people inviting me to connect on LinkedIn. Where else? Like I said, I get the odd text message. Hey, I didn't hear from you after we talked last night. That's a common, like, oh, did I send this to the wrong number? Or did you give me, I got a number from somebody. They must have given me your number, right? These little tricks. So you see them over and over again. So that if you engage in conversation, if you connect with that person in your social media group, and if they now can see your other friend groups, like in a Facebook scenario, then you're sort of, you're letting them in. Right? That sounds ominous. But you're basically sharing information about the people you talk to with people that you don't know, and then they can take advantage of that. And it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but that's simply how the network effect works in social media. So like I said, make these groups of people you interact with more deliberate and less open to new additions and changes. If you look at Signalgate, the sharing of information with a Signal group where not everybody in the Signal group knew who was in the Signal group, right? So you had a little information leak. That sort of thing really does happen. And hopefully you're not making any sort of battle plans or anything so ominous. But if I say something to someone and I don't know that there are 10 other robots listening, I didn't add those people. How'd they get in there? Oh yeah, they were cute girls from wherever. Great. I would have said that this is the tribal nature. This is all based on the tribal nature of human socializing. That is, we like to be in groups. where we really like to be a part of that group, where whether it's a sports team that this is my team, that's your team, where, you know, we're supposed to hate each other now, or vehicle brands. Oh, you drive Ford, I drive Chevy, or whatever it is, right? Or political parties, obviously, or hometowns. My city's better than your city. Oh, you're from, or it could be states, right? Here in Vegas, or certainly Southern Nevada, maybe all of Nevada. What is it? Don't California are Vegas or something like that. So, oh, you come from another place and we don't like you just because of that, which is kind of silly. Although there are some reasons for that. So, 6 in one, half a dozen the other, perhaps. I really would have thought this would have been a driving factor, that the study would not have revealed the same behavior. So I thought it would be the driving factor, maybe, the tribal nature of people. So we definitely want, and so by that, I'm not a sociologist or an anthropologist or anything like that, but just from an anecdotal observation perspective, it just seems like people like to be in their in crowd, which makes you, if you're not in their in crowd, you're in that out crowd. So we automatically don't like each other because we oppose, unless somebody says, "Oh wait, they like the same team as us." Oh, okay, then you're okay then. But so I would have thought it was this human nature to be, and tribalism is sort of it's a survival. It's a component of survival and evolution of. I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but it's been said many times. We like to hang around with beings that look like us. Obviously, when you grow up in a family and in a community, you're going to see people, and people who look similar tend to be closely associated, just because you're in family and village groups, and you extend families from the same group of people and so on. So all of these things sort of amplify that effect. And then when you see someone from a different tribe or a different place, a different, somewhere else, and they don't look like you, you're initially suspicious. And then you're going to say, oh, I don't know if that person's I'm going to hang out with the people that I know, these people behind me, or, that I'm in this group and that group over there. I don't know about them. And it's only, as the saying goes, if you encounter the same, whatever it is, again, you're less likely to be quite so cautious because it didn't kill you the first time. So the more interaction you have with the other group, the less likely you are to fear them. But then if the other group decides that they are going to initiate some sort of shenanigans, then you may not trust them. And that may be flipping the switch to, and there's a whole game theory thing about defections and how you interchange with people. So game theory probably should enter into this study, or some version of it, about how the behaviors are programmed, if they are programmed. Each of the participants should have some, not direct knowledge of how game theory works, but should have some of the tendencies that are modeled in some of the game theory simulations, where there are defections and other, the tit for tat and all these other variations on how games are played, right? Anyway, according to this one study, so it's one study. It was a study done with a single LLM, like we said, so Chat GPT 4.0 mini, I think it was, simulating the 500 participants, which I think is problematic due to innate bias from how models are coded and trained. So I would like to see all models. I would like to see DeepSeek and Claude and Devin and Copilot, whatever. I would like to see as many models as possible. Llama, there's so many. There are too many to really know. I would like to see as many models as possible. Some will be good, some will not be as good, and so they'll be less capable of interacting, and so whatever it is. But I'd like to see a huge a heterogeneous group of models acting as the participants, and I would like to see a vastly larger number of participating models. So I'd like to see 10,000, maybe, as many as we can fit onto one social network of some sort. And I would also like to see some models like the decentralized Mastodon or ActivityPub model. Doesn't have to be Mastodon, but where you can have entire platform, social network platform, I guess you could say, social network platform partitions, right? So like I said earlier, Mastodon am I on Mastodon online? I'll tell you right now. I should know this. I am on... Nope, I picked the wrong one. So many bookmarks. I am on Mastodon Online. So at Dan Hugo at mastodon.online. That's me. So, and again, that's my random this, that, the other thing, whatever. And what did Ann Applebaum post about? How can I, where's my thing here? Since I mentioned it and since I'm here, I'll tell you. It was replies. Sorry, I'm totally killing the mood here, but we're almost at the end. So it was, the State Department reports that, the State Department reports that portrayed Germany as more oppressive than El Salvador. Original reporting from embassies has been removed, replaced with language clearly M-, and in a few cases ludicrously M-, manipulated by political appointees. So the double plus on good reference is basically, I was almost going to say something like, is one of them Winston Smith? Is a reference to the 1984 book that people are changing history. So I got 3 favorites, and I don't know any of those people, which is fine. Anyway, so I would like to see the simulation for the purposes of research take place in a variety of scenarios, not just sticking to one platform, or maybe, I don't even know if they used a platform, if they just had a simulated engagement platform that they could probably, again, I got to read the study for the setup, but the take home, I think there's a lot of work to be done here to find out if this can be repaired or made better for people who want it to be made better. Is tribalism behavior programmed into we humans? Or is it something a large language model can acquire from consuming the content of the internet? Like, is that what they're seeing in this study, that they basically do the same thing that people do? There's likely more nuance to this than can be tested in an LLM, a large language model. So I do believe the study on its own is I do not believe the study on its own is world changing. And one study can barely do that anyway. But I would like to see a lot of this taking place, like a lot of analysis that not only involves simulation through this sort of approach, but also looking much more deeply at the engagement between people and large language models or similar. We already hear about the bots, the Russian bots, the Korean bots, North Korean bots, or whoever, right? Whoever is following you, are they really people? Like I said earlier, people contact me on Telegram. They're probably automation of some sort. Often these interactions go anonymous because people don't share, they're chatting with you in a messaging platform like Telegram or similar, WhatsApp maybe, or WeChat or whatever, or direct messaging you on LinkedIn, etc. So it's not always open to the public. So it would be interesting to see how people behave where they don't, well, actually a double blind in the participation arena. And then after all is said and done, the robots would know if the other, all involved in these conversations don't know. And the researchers would find out afterwards. So everybody has no idea during the simulation run, or however many days it would be. I think that would be interesting to learn about what's going on, or how things might be going on, and see what happens, how people really interact when, like, I have 500 friends in this survey, in this study that we're doing. Yeah, all 500 are robots. Like, would they know? Would it matter? To be honest, I have found that participating in more than 1 or 2 exchanges on any social media platform, for my part, is rare. I don't really do too much engagement. Probably more on a Mastodon platform of whichever one of the 3 I mentioned. Some have argued that the value of social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Blue Sky, for examples, is as a megaphone. Write only is a comment that you'll hear nerds say, is that I don't read it. I just post stuff and I don't really care what people say. This is true of YouTube. Never read the comments. It's a megaphone to discover news or announcements from family or friends and so on. And I do that. So that's why I visit Twitter once in a while, just to see what the buzz is. But I don't really engage with anything on Twitter anymore. Actual conversation could and maybe should take place between people who know each other, which messaging platforms like WhatsApp or Telegram and others might enable in a more reliable way if you actually know who you're talking to. Though that becomes more and more dubious with every unknown person that I see reaching out to me on Telegram, which I've already gone into. Still, I would propose a first step is to either remain in the mosh pit of social media if you must, and if that satisfies something that you need satisfied in you. Again, maybe you're a troll, maybe you like to piss people off, maybe you like to push people's buttons, as they say. I don't know. I have better things to do myself. But in general, I have really leaned into using socials for discovery and other means like email for actual useful communication. I think based on my own anecdotal experiences that there may be something in that direction to explore, which is make it easier or make it more of a social norm, right? People immediately, and you'll see this reported in the news, like how many likes something got, how many replies. People want to read the replies. Some people actually write, well, they publish entire articles that are essentially recounting comments on a Twitter post. Like that's not real journalism. You can just, here's a link to a Twitter feed, have at it, right? But you don't get to write your 1,000-word or 500-word article. But when people are using these things for something other than just casual communication, it becomes important what is being said, how it's being said, to whom, who's reading it, how long it sticks around. There have been various things like Snapchat or Dust, where your messages are specifically supposed to disappear. Sometimes then they change their business model and, oh, wait, now they're not disappearing. Okay. But I think it's still the wild, wild west. And I think a lot more thought should be put into this other than just forcing young people to not use phones in school or maybe in general. The age restriction stuff that's going on now is going to be tricky from the UK. It looks like end-to-end encryption is okay for a little while. I think the US is leaning towards keeping encryption in place. That would be catastrophic if they remove the ability of people to actually encrypt communications. There's too much writing, financial and otherwise, that would just be ridiculous. So, it's still the Wild West. I think there's a lot of thinking to do and a lot of real research to do on how people are behaving. I think like an observable social network interaction. So you can actually, so it's not done like, just looking at numbers. You're not just looking at population counts and behavior based on numbers like, oh, this young person had so many followers on this and they spent so many hours and they had this behavior. Like actually peeling away the layers of the onion to see what's going on, to see what real impact some of this stuff has. Is it ephemeral? Is it ethereal? Did somebody posted on my Facebook when it was called a wall, I think? Did somebody post something 10 years ago that still bothers me today? Or is it something that I don't care. I don't even know who that was, right? There's probably both. So I'm gonna wrap it up now. I could probably ramble on much longer, but I think, so this study is the beginning of some hopefully more in-depth observation studies, more in-depth detailed, more participation from more and different types of models if they're going to do simulations, and then including humans sometimes and examining those interactions. I think there's a lot of work to be done here, but I'm in the camp that social media has been a net negative for the world, even though there have been net positives for small groups, right? Like I said, family, friends, keep in touch. I use Facebook because the rest of my family uses Facebook. Okay, so the rest of your family could easily use email and you just talk to each other. Yeah, but it's easier to use Facebook. No, it isn't, actually. So that's what we know. That's where we are. I would love to know what you think. Maybe at some point you'll come on the FFS Talk audio program, or maybe some other type of FFS Talk program. And we can have a discussion about that. A non-anonymous discussion. All right. Thanks for listening. As always, take care. And don't forget to check out buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. You don't have to spend any money, but that's where links to all of my stuff can be found. Take care. Bye-bye.